Hey besties! I'm so glad to be back where I'm not bawling my eyes out on the internet. And this video is more of a productive video because I will be talking more in depth about borderline personality disorder, what it is, and my story with it. I have been beating around the bush about making this video for so long, and I've tried making this video so many times throughout my journey. It just didn't feel like it was coming off right. I didn't know how I wanted to say it. Every time I went to do it, I ended up just trauma dumping about like one scenario, because I would just get too deep in my story and then just get sidetracked. Telling your story is really hard when it's yourself, because when you really think about it, all the stories are important because they're you, but like, you guys aren't gonna care, and it's really not that big of a deal. But to me, it was. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not invalidating myself. Like, I'm being so serious. Like, to me, it is a big deal. To you, you're just gonna be like, come on, lady, spit it out, spit it out. Obviously, this is a different clip on a different day, but my camera decided to make like a scratchy sound throughout this entire part. And there's other parts in this video where you will hear it, and I do apologize, but it's definitely not as bad as this part. Before I jump into literally a trauma dump, I just wanted to tell you what borderline personality disorder is. So borderline personality disorder is the instabilities of moods, behaviors, and relationships. So really just the instability of all things in your life. And there is a criteria you have to meet in order to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. So it wasn't just like you're just struggling a little bit in your relationships or with your moods or behaviors. There is actually a criteria in order to meet that definition, I guess. I'm gonna put a little list of the 9 criteria here for you so you can read them as I spout them off really quick. But the first one's gonna be fear of abandonment, then unstable relationships, unclear or self-shifting behavior, impulsive or self-destructive behavior, self-injury, extreme emotional mood swings, chronic feelings of emptiness, and paranoia, like feeling suspicious or out of touch with reality. So those are the 9 criteria. There's a lot to it, and there are going to be times where anyone feels any of those emotions that I just listed, but it's like feeling all those things all the time, every single day, all the time. I know, instead. I'm not trying to do like a boohoo me, like I feel abandonment, I do all this, and I do all of that. I hate sounding like that, but that's me. But yeah, that's just a little more about me before I go a little more in my story, so you know what the heck I'm talking about if you don't know what any of this mental health mumbo jumbo means. For as long as I can remember, I've always been like an emotional child. I don't really know when my BPD started to like form or started happening. I just know I've always been emotional, and all the things in my life really didn't help. So to give you a little bit of background about my family history, we have a lot of not great things in my family history. It's like, I don't want to trauma dump on you guys, okay? So I will be giving a trigger warning at the beginning of this video and another trigger warning right now. But back to what I was saying, there really hasn't been much mental health diagnosis that I know of before I got diagnosed, and one other person in my family got diagnosed, but they're so close to me in age. So there's no one like our parents or anyone above us that was diagnosed with mental health disorders, and it's probably because I am very aware that I am privileged to be able to get a mental health diagnosis. My parents went through so much as children. Does that mean that their behavior is excused or should have went down the way it went down? Probably not, but I do know that I'm privileged in getting my diagnosis because everyone in my family was not, and they needed help. I have lost members of my family to self-unaliving. I don't know if you can say that on here. My dad's mom, so my grandma, we lost her when my dad was 12, so I never got to meet her, and her sister even did it. My closer family has even have had like hospital stays for things like that, but not really anyone has been diagnosed with any mental health disorders that I know of. I just know that a lot of my family has cut their life short due to mental health. I do know that some of my family did struggle with substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and my grandpa did lose his life because of those things. It's just like a cluster mess of things. And that's just my dad's side of the family. My mom's side of the family, immediate, not so bad. Not so bad. But the rest of them, they're a little crazy, and they do the substances and get into lots of trouble. I'm just saying that it is their mental health, but I don't know anyone that feels mentally healthy that's like, let's just ruin our life. Both sides of my family, a little crazy, a little nuts. It's okay. We all have family that's crazy and nuts. Don't we all? But that's a little background on my family history, so because it does play into BPD, because they don't really know if it is genetic or if it's just learned behavior or trauma induced, or it could be all of those things. They don't really know, but they know people with the borderline personality went through those things and now they have borderline personality. So it does feel pretty relevant to the story, at least in my opinion. But one day my parents got together and bam, I came along and they decided, hey, our family struggles weren't enough. Let's mix them together. There was I was born and I am an only child, so I don't have any siblings. I'm all me by myself and my lonesome. Growing up, I don't remember having really any other problems except being extremely emotional. I don't really remember any of this. My parents told me they had to take away tables and certain things because I would just walk up to it and hit my head off of it. I don't know if I was feeling frustration. I used to just be a little nut little kid that would be like, table, bam. What I do know is that I guess there was a little bit of trauma in my childhood because I didn't know that my neighbor tried to unalive me one time when I was playing outside of my trampoline. Apparently she was an older lady and I think she was struggling with like dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that, but she was crazy. And one day I was playing outside of my trampoline. It was like the middle of the day, so it wasn't like I was playing in the middle of the night and I was breaking curfew. I was just being a 5-year-old kid, I don't know. But she came outside with a pointy object. I don't know if you can say this stuff on YouTube, but you know what I'm trying to say. She came outside with a pointy object and tried to unalive me. And I don't remember any of this, but my mom ended up having her kicked out and arrested and all those things because she tried to hurt a child. I don't know where that lady ended up. I don't remember any of this happening. I do remember the lady herself. I remember talking to her all the time. I do remember before she lost like consciousness and like all her screws or whatever. I do remember her being really nice, but I don't remember any of that. So that was a little bit of There was a little bit of trauma before I get deep into it. And I do know that my best friend that I was around growing up, because her mom used to watch me, was kind of mean to me, but that was pretty much all the trauma I remember before going through really bigger traumas in my life. Like, that wasn't big enough. Really not much happened in my childhood that I remember. I remember always dressing in tight clothes. I remember being called Smiley by everyone. Like, I don't remember having any problems other than being emotionally explosive and I guess those incidents that I don't even remember. So it was around like 9 years old when like big things started happening to me. I went through a assault and it was my best friend, and I didn't know that kids could be capable of that. And plus I didn't even know what that stuff was then, so I just didn't know what was going on. And looking back, I know that they were probably a victim to something bigger, because how did someone my age know to do that to me? And it was my best friend at the time, and also her mom used to watch me every day after school, and I just like didn't really know what was happening. And I just remember feeling so uncomfortable and so icky and not really knowing what was going on. I don't even remember reacting to it or even having feelings about it until like now that I've gotten older. I'm like, that probably played a big part into why I started acting out in the first place. An assault happening to me from like ages 9 to 12, and there's really nothing I did or said about it because I just didn't know what it was or what was happening. And I was thinking that maybe all friends did that, but really close friends, but it's something that you kept a secret. It was really confusing. It's something I don't really like talking about, and I'm only probably going to talk about it this one time because it's like, I am still confused. Yeah, let's move past that because it's icky topic. But then I got, you know, around like 12 years old where her mom didn't have to watch me anymore, and I think that our like, you know, brains were starting to develop, and now things were becoming really awkward, so we weren't really friends anymore. But I do remember her picking on me all the time at school and telling everyone that I was gay and all that stuff. Yeah, so that was great. That was fun. But yeah, so I was like 12 and in middle school, and I had these group of friends, and they would always pick one person in the friend group to act like they were invisible, but it was usually just me and this other girl. It really wasn't one person in the friend group. Say like we were just sitting here talking like, hey, how are you today? And I would like reply. They'd be like, hey, did you hear that? Like to your face, and they would mean it. It's funny or whatever a few times, but when you go through that all the time, you just start to feel not good. It never felt good. It was just some catty middle school girl stuff. But also while this was happening, I remember my locker got egged one time. This kid got kicked out of school for physically grabbing my body multiple times. Not even multiple times, like every single day until they finally got rid of him. And very inappropriately, must I add. I don't know if you guys remember anonymous.com, but you could just like send anonymous messages to people. People would send messages to me telling me to KYS. Yeah, You know what that means. And people would leave notes in my locker telling the same thing. I never growing up thought I was getting bullied because I thought it was like someone's pushing you in the locker or stealing your lunch money or you're getting beat up. I've never had any physical altercations at all. I mean, I've had one, it's way into my college lifetime, and it wasn't even me, it wasn't even my fault, but I've never had any physical altercations happen to me, so I never really rationalized or validated that I was being picked on or bullied. I just was like, it's just what everyone goes through. I don't think everyone's getting taunted and told to like not be here anymore every day. I do know a lot of kids do go through that. I don't think it's normal, and I do not think it's okay, and I don't think anyone should endure that, because any adult in their right mind would just walk away and just take themselves out of the situation. They wouldn't even be around that stuff. But when you're a kid and you're in school, you don't have a choice but to go to school every single day. It is the law, and to face those people every single day. I don't think it's fair, and it's a mental, emotional game that I did not know I was even playing. It was not fun. It was not a good time. I just remember during all of middle school, I just had all this sadness and anger built up. I used to come home crying every day from school. I was an only child, so I had no one. My parents worked all the time, so I was always alone, and I wasn't allowed to leave my house unless my parents were home, but they were always working, so I was always alone, always crying. Everyone needs someone to be there. I do not think that was wrong of me to ask. I do want to say during these times I kept my grades up and I played sports. I was a competitive swimmer. I had an Olympic swim coach and everything. I was really freaking good at it. And I was also a softball player. I also had a really big passion for that. I don't think I was as good as I was as in swimming, but I really wasn't a bad softball player. I was just super naturally talented in swimming. But I maintained doing all of these things all throughout elementary school, middle school, during the bullying, during the assaults, during all those times. I maintained all of that stuff. And then high school happened. I was feeling like I was building up all this resentment and all this feeling and all this anger. And I just remember one day waking up. Like, I literally remember how my room was arranged that morning and everything. And I was like, I'm done. Everyone's getting my wrath. I know that sounds terrible, but like I was so hurt and I just was so quiet and so nice and so sweet and so kind. I swear to God. But I just woke up one morning and said, everyone's gonna feel my wrath, including myself, apparently. I started getting in a lot of trouble at school. I was on the edge of expulsion almost all 4 years of high school. I ended up being part of the biggest substance bust of my high school. I didn't do anything. I have the test to prove it. I actually didn't partake in anything at the time because I was like 14, but I was there and I got in a lot of trouble. I was in the room and I was hiding from teachers and stuff, so yeah. Yeah, so my grades were dropping. I was getting kicked out of school. When I got to high school, it wasn't that I was like popular or not popular. It was like I could fit in with everyone. I just didn't belong anywhere. I don't know if that makes any sense. And your girl, because she was assaulted, I hate admitting this, she started a bit early. So she was doing things with people that didn't care because I was around a bunch of hormonal boys. I had no self-worth, no self-esteem, but I was also being mean to others because I felt really bad about myself. There was one time I threw a coffee at a teacher. I got suspended for that. I almost got a teacher fired one time because technically she flipped on me, but like looking back on how bad I was in high school, I just was like, I don't know, man. Like, did I make that seem like it was her? Honestly, she did pull me in front of the class and call me miserable in front of everyone, but I was. So, like, I kind of deserved that. I was a hellion. I just remember waking up one day and I was just like, I'm done. I'm done being nice. I'm done. Like, I'm just done. And I never got in a physical fight. So, I always say, as long as you cause no harm to yourself or others, it doesn't matter. Okay. I sound a bit insane. So, I was just doing a bunch of crazy stuff all the time in high school, and I just woke up and was like, enjoy my wrath, and that's what I did. So obviously I was struggling in high school super bad, but my ways of coping were like substance use and SH and my eating disorder and really bad things. So I ended up being hospitalized because I tried to commit when I was around 14 or 15 for my first time, and I did have other attempts after that, but that was my only hospitalization. And I was only in there for 5 days, and then my parents got me a therapist, and they didn't believe in mental health disorders. They only believed in behavioral problems. So they signed me up for therapy, and took me to the one appointment in order to get me out so they didn't have to spend money at the hospital getting me help anymore, and then took me out of therapy, and I went back to getting no help at all. So I then continued to cope with an eating disorder, self-harm, and substances and alcohol before I was 15, or around 15. I won't say before I was 15, but I will say between 14 and 16 is when it started. I can't remember when I started doing all the things, but I do know between 14 and 16 is when everything began to happen. And it just ended up not being great at all. Throughout high school, I will say that my biggest struggle obviously was all the things, but my biggest struggle was with my eating. I ended up on my not alive bed. I couldn't get up from my bed at all. I was not going to school at all. And my eating disorder was my choice of, this is what I'm just about to do. Right? Okay, because I can't cope with school. I can't cope at home. And I felt like I had no one I could trust. I was having so many things go wrong in my high school experience. My parents were invalidating me. They weren't even getting me help. And the one time I did get help, they were basically just telling me I was in trouble. And yeah, so when I was like 16, I just threw my hands up in the air and I just stopped eating. To the point I lost my stomach muscles. I literally couldn't hold my bladder. I was not okay. It was really bad, and I've never actually admitted that out loud before. But yeah, it was really, really bad. And finally, my swim coach noticed, and she was like, hey, like, you need help, like, today. Like, not, like, yesterday. Like, honestly, a year ago. So she basically damn near kidnapped me from my house and took me to an eating clinic, and I just ended up charging my mom's credit card. It sounds so bad, but it's pretty much what needed to happen because I was, like I said, my stomach muscles were gone. They weren't there anymore. And I know that I'm flying like past through some of these stories because there is so much to the story, but it's like so you can get a feel and a background about me. And I know that I'm sitting here and I've caused all my own problems, it sounds like, because I feel like I pretty much did. But like, yeah, that's my journey, that's my story. Telling my own sad stories, I feel super weird. Like, I don't want you to pity me. I don't want you to feel bad, okay? Like, I just, like, I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, so I ended up charging my mom's credit card. I ended up going to therapy, and I just kept going up until I turned 18. I ended up going to school when I wanted and when I didn't want it. I won't say I was a good kid after that point. I was still a pretty bad kid in high school, and I was still using substances and alcohol, but I wasn't dying from my eating anymore. So that was really what needed to stop because my body was deteriorating. So as long as I could have got my physical health back up at that point, I just didn't care. But I ended up graduating and walking the stage for high school, thank God. I will say this, I showed up to maybe like 50 dates out of my last 2 years of high school. I'm not kidding. And if anyone ever wants to see the receipt for proof, I swear to God. And I walked the stage. I got pictures of my cap and gown on the stage, and I have pictures. I don't have pictures, but I can get a picture. And then my report card saying I missed so many hours of school. I did end up graduating, although I ended up like stopped going after 16. Thank you school, because a lot of my teachers did know that I was struggling. Like my principal had a soft spot for me because she could always see it. She would used to pull me into her office when I did go and just try to feed me and stuff. I really do feel like I did get a little bit of a pity pass, but I am very proud of myself because I got through high school. That was hard because I did skip over so many stories and so many times and how many breakups I've been through. I got cheated on in high school. I was assaulted other times in high school. There was just so much that went on. I don't want to sit here and trauma dump on you guys, but that's pretty much just so you can get a feel of my story and an idea. Maybe one day I'll go deeper into it if it's super, super important, but I'm sure no one wants to hear all the terrible things that happened to me in detail because that's just kind of disturbing and weird that you would. But since I graduated high school, I was like, shoot, since I got a diploma, I might as well do something with it, even though I was still struggling. I was still struggling. Like, yes, was I getting therapy for my eating? I was. I wasn't completely fine from my eating, and none of my other things were getting help. I was just eating to stay alive at this point, and I was just like, well, my brain can think now. But I was 18, so what does any other 18-year-old want to do whenever they turn 18 and they feel like they aren't being heard by their parents and they just don't want to do any of that? So I moved away. I moved away for college, and I was like working, paying all my bills while going to school, and it was hard. It was not a good time. But what I also did not mention is I ended up in a relationship that wasn't very nice or kind at all during my transition from high school to college. And this person was supposed to go to a whole different college than me, but they ended up going to the same college as me. And then after I applied for the apartment I ended up getting, he then applied for that apartment. And then I got there, got a job, and he got the same job. That person was following me everywhere. He did put hands on me one time. He's done some unspeakable things that I don't even want to talk about, but I was going through a lot. And also, again, I was just not doing well with my own personal mental health because I never got that taken care of, nor did I care. I was just trying to live my life, and I didn't think I had like anything going on in me. I just like, why is the world happening to me? I was in that crappy relationship and in that situation, in that apartment with that person, and it was just so god freaking awful. But then finally just one day I woke up and I just broke up with him. Like, I don't remember what egged me on. I just remember breaking up with him and being done. I personally think I checked out way before that relationship ended, and I didn't let things get too bad, although he did put hands on me. I just didn't let it get that bad, and I was like, I'm not doing this. But then I just started partying and doing a bunch of stuff because now I'm single and in college and like 18, 19 years old, just partying, doing whatever. And I was doing things that were not good for my mental health, and then was like, hey, what's wrong with my mental health? So then I got medicated by a doctor, and I was drinking on top of that. And dude, I remember this is when I think I may have been in psychosis or something. I have no idea. But my brain just would not work properly from that point on. And I remember for like 2 years, I felt like stuck in this weird brain pattern. I ended up going cold turkey from those meds, which I didn't know could cause psychosis. So I did not make any of that better. I was just insane. Those 2 years, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just insane. I wasn't even going to therapy because I moved away and I no longer had a therapist. I was just medicated because I went to my doctor and was like, hey, I'm depressed. And they were like, here's some pills. And then it screwed me up so bad. That era is unspeakable. During that partying and going on meds and everything, I got into another relationship because, like I said earlier, I was a serial dater. So I ended up dating another guy, and it was a very mentally and emotional abusive relationship. By the end of it, we ended up moving out of state, and I paid for everything, even the heat and the water and electric. And one day he just left and turned the heat, water, and electric off on me, even though I paid them. They were just in his name. It ended up just going really, really bad. During the time of me dating him, I started to go to therapy and start working on myself because during that entire relationship, he was telling me that I needed to fix this and do that and fix this and do that. So I was willing to do anything. So I started paying for therapy finally. Really, I will say, as much as that relationship was a curse, it was low-key a blessing because I taught myself how to be okay. Through that relationship, I just went through too much in that relationship. Like, don't do it like me, okay? Don't wait until you're in a terrible relationship to start getting therapy because your boyfriend's telling you everything is wrong with you and you need help. But yeah, so I started going to therapy during that relationship, even though it was ending all bad and everything. Like, it seemed all good, but it really, really wasn't. Like, looking back on it, there really wasn't as much good as I was making it out to be. I was just so blinded. I was so freaking blinded. And I thought that everything was my fault, and I just wanted to control it and take control of the situation because I didn't want to lose him. So therapy. But I also learned I was putting myself in really crappy, bad situations. Starting to make content because I was finally getting diagnosed. I was finally getting help, and I was still in that relationship, and you guys were like my little outlet. Like I said, that relationship eventually came to an end. That pretty much takes us to where we are today. I mean, it's been about a year, almost 2, since that relationship ended, but I'm still in that phase of like trying to figure out who I am without substances or alcohol use or just self-harm at all, and who I am through not other people. And I'm trying to find my worth in myself and trying to find it through things and people and all this. So basically that's where I'm at now. It's just kind of navigating what I feel like my life should be. Like, I'm actually taking charge of my life. I don't really depend on other people. Like, yes, do I have people in my life? Yes, I care and love them so deeply. I really do. But I do know that, no offense to any of these people, that there's other people in the world I can rationalize it. Now, when I become in a deep relationship again, or have any of these past things that I used to struggle with in my face, of course, it's very, very hard not to resort back to where I used to be. But learning so much about myself and being able to analyze all the things I just told you about makes me realize, like, hey, you probably don't do well in this environment, and you probably shouldn't be with a person like that. Like, it just taught me so much, and that's pretty much where I'm at today, is that I'm just still learning what my life should be, and what my next chapter is. And I really hope it's way better than all the trauma dumping I just did on you. And I know that life will always have its curveballs. I'm gonna go through something again. But I do know and can rationalize that it isn't going to be the end of the world anymore, because every time anything happened to me, or any argument, or any person just leaving the room or anything would just like trigger me, and I would just be upset, sobbing, crying, screaming, and couldn't get out of bed or do anything. And I would pick the most unhealthy coping mechanisms ever. But now I'm not. I'm coping by talking to you guys. I have professional help. Me and my parents have mended our relationship. There are bridges in my past that are burned that I don't want to mend, and that's fine. I feel like I'm on a pretty good track now, and this is probably the best that I've been in my entire life. At least I feel like that. So, like, do I struggle still, and was I crying on the internet last week? Yes. But I do feel like I'm not anywhere what I used to be, and I don't feel like life is throwing me every which way. I actually feel like I have a grasp of my life finally. And I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about this today, because I know that when I was going through any of the things that I did talk about, I felt so alone, and I really thought that no one else was just getting punched in the face by life over and over and over and over and over again, because I really was. And looking back, like, yes, were there certain times I put myself in certain environments? Yes, 100%. And did I skip over a lot of stories? Yes, 100%, because I was telling this and I was like, oh, I need to go back and tell them this. But I was like, we will be sitting here for 3 hours, and no one wants to watch a trauma dump at 3 hours. They just want the gist of things. That is the gist of things. And if I ever need to go deeper into this, I might make another video, because there are so many things that came to my brain that I was like, I feel like it does play a part in the story, but it's so hard to get it all out, because it just is. There's just so much of 23 years of my life that I can fit in at least under 30 minutes. Yeah, again, I just wanted to make this video because I really thought I was the only one going through these things, and I never thought there'd be another side. I never thought that I would stop self-harming. I never thought that I would stop attempting. I never thought that I would just be content, even though sometimes my life is still a mess, but I'm doing okay. And I want you to know that one day you will be okay. You just gotta fight for yourself and just keep pushing and keep going. I just want you to know that you can get there. And if you're like me, I'm so sorry. It might get worse before it gets better, but eventually it will get better. I pinky freaking promise. I pinky promise. If I can do it, you can do it. I swear. If I can do it, you definitely can do it. I swear. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like this video if you took something away from it. Not that you liked my trauma or anything, but just like it for the algorithm, you know. Yeah, again, thank you guys for listening to my story. I really don't know how to close out this video other than just closing it out, because I'm like, it's weird just trauma dumping and then just being like, bye. I feel like I was in the best headspace I could be to make this video, and I didn't go too into detail where I'm like scarring y'all for life. So that's where we're gonna keep it. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys more than anything, and until next week, I love you guys.